Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in this evening. Remember, you can always check us out after we're done here with the live broadcast on YouTube, and that stuff lasts forever. So if you don't have time to sit and listen to us jaw about this live, go to our YouTube page. It's Doc and Lefty on YouTube. To search that, I guess. I don't know quite what the URL is, but there's a link on the website, docandlefty.com, and we're there for you. So we're talking about the surprising and sort of unexpected passing away of Justice Antonin Scalia, and kind of going over a little bit of the legacy and some of the contributions and why he became such an infamous both villain on the left and champion on the right. And I gotta say, Doc, this could not have come at a more just tumultuous time. We've got candidates for it's an election year. Obviously, we've got candidates for president that are dropping out of the race. That now I think wish they might have stuck it out a little bit longer. On the Republican side, it looks like this thing is going to have just a weird resolution at the convention. On the Democratic side, I think that they're both. That Senator Clinton and Senator Sanders are kind of keeping their lips a little bit sealed about all of this business to see how it shakes out. And President Obama, the White House took the White House and Supreme Court were the only two branches that took a respectful amount of time right after they learned the news before the president came out and announced that he was going to nominate somebody here in the next several weeks. And I guess let's just get into it. What do you think? What do you think about go ahead.
Well, let's go through the process.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Let's do the process first. You're the expert in that. There's a lot of people that have a lot of misinformation, don't quite understand what happens next. So why don't you walk us through that?
Well, the Supreme Court in the Constitution is the only courts in the country that are set up by the Constitution is the Supreme Court. It's the Article 3 court, and the powers that are vested in the executive and legislative branch with respect to the Supreme Court itself are that the president shall nominate justices to sit on the Supreme Court with the advice and consent of the Senate. Now, advice and consent has been interpreted differently over decades and centuries of this country being around. But it's modern day interpretation. It's the way that it's been used for the last several decades is that the president nominates and the Senate confirms, much in the way that it would with a high level cabinet appointment like the Attorney General or a secretary like Secretary of State. And so that you can't get a nomination unless you get a majority of senators to vote yes on your nomination. Now, obviously, that's the basic. I mean, that's the basic process. The president makes a pick. They have hearings in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee for as long as it takes. Then the Judiciary Committee votes to whether or not to go to the full floor, and then they have a vote up and down to see how it works. Obviously, there are other technical things that can happen along the way, such as filibusters or just not allowing the Judiciary Committee to sit. But that's the basic process.
So part of the thing is going to be everybody thinks that Obama gets to appoint him. And an appointment is a little bit different than a nomination. Would you agree with that? You know, you can nominate somebody, but then it has to go through an approval process. For me, an appointment means there's no approval process. The boss just gets to stick somebody in there.
Well, I mean,
that's what it seems like to me, and that seems to be where a lot of confusion comes from.
I guess to me, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's an appoint. I mean, he's appointing. I don't know. To me, they're used interchangeably. So okay. I don't know if that language matters very much, but basically he picks somebody, sends to the Senate votes up or down.
Yep. So to me, that's a nomination because a Republican can get the nomination doesn't mean he gets elected, right? Same kind of thing. Whereas an appointment, you appoint the head of the CIA,
The CIA, I think they still have to be vetted through the Senate though, yeah.
Well, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yep.
Right? So there's a bit of a difference there. And one of the things that the left is screaming about is, get out of the way, Republicans, and let Obama have his pick. And what's funny is all the Democrats that you get to hear about who have obstructed Republican picks. Namely, Bork was the biggest one, And so from my perspective, it's the right of the Senate not to approve the president's pick for Supreme Court. Is that pretty accurate?
Well, the Senate can. No, that's not accurate. It's the Senate. It's not up to the Senate to decide who the president gets to pick, which is kind of what you're saying.
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is the president gets to pick whoever he wants.
Right.
Hi, this is my guy. This is who I want. A nomination.
Right.
And then the Senate vets him, and then, like you said, votes up or down.
Right.
And a lot of the lefties are out there going, well, the Senate should stand out of the way and just appoint whoever Obama wants.
That's a mischaracterization because what happened right away, it's a complete mischaracterization. What happened today is that what happened immediately is that Mitch McConnell came out and said, it doesn't matter if you nominate anybody, President Obama, we're not going to give you a vote regardless until the next president is elected, until the next president is sworn in. That's not what you just said. What you just said is that the left is sitting there saying, give us our nomination and shut up. That's not what's happening.
Well, this computer just went down, and that is exactly what several of the people on our own feed said.
Well,
That's exactly what they said.
But then you got other people on the feed that are saying things like, we can't have another liberal on the court. So delay.
That's true.
Delay.
Yeah, and that brings up how political the Supreme Court really is.
Well,
in this entire thing.
The nomination process is, of course, political because there are two main reasons. One, it's the only way a president really has to make his or her legacy last for a very long time. There's legislation that gets passed and the president, we talk about Ronald Reagan's legacy. Ronald Reagan's legacy was not necessarily the leadership of the country. It was the fact that he appointed guys like William Kennedy, Scalia, and that tilted the ideological balance of the court away from what was seen more as liberal leaning with Brennan and Thurgood Marshall and Earl Warren through the 60s and the 70s. And so I think that so obviously the president, being constitutionally required to make a nomination, that's entitled to make whatever pick he wants to make. The response from the Senate Republicans is nakedly political, and everyone expected them to do something. I think every Democrat or every liberal person that had an interest in this subject was waiting for something like this to happen, and they didn't disappoint. And what I find really interesting about it, just to kind of, before we get into the nuts and bolts on whether or not it was wise, is that it's depending on what side you're on, and the conservatives have been saying this for years. Hey, we don't care about ideology on that. We just want the court to be balanced. We just want a balanced court of some kind. There's no rule that says it has to be balanced. And now they're saying we're not going to do anything, Obama, because we're worried about worried about ideology, when before we were saying we don't really care about ideology. We just want somebody to interpret the law. So now we're concerned. Now we're worried about what kind of ideology we have. So I find that fascinating.
Well, we're going to be back right after this break. We're going to start talking about what a bunch of hypocrites Democrats are currently. We'll be back right after the break. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you.